Welcome to the Freedom Footprint Show, Obi.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you for having me, guys.
And welcome
We finally did it.
Yeah, finally.
Yeah.
We tried in vain in Riga, just didn't quite get the schedule connected. I think we were both looking for each other for a good hour or something.
It was one of these sort of movies where you just keep missing the person you're looking right and the other person's looking left and you walk past each other. Yeah. But anyway.
Here we are, sunny Lugano.
Last year Lugano was a glorious river. It was the first time I went to Lugano and it was amazing. This year, not so much, but still the energy, the orange energy is strong.
And we're happy because we're in a 5-star hotel in a 5-star city in a 5-star country, right?
Yeah, it's
you can really feel.
It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool.
Just ignore these guys. They're letting it get to them. Well, at least Knut is. I think Obi is still humble, but you know.
Sure.
Well, this is the exception to the rule. I've lived in everything from best Western to worst Eastern, you know. So.
Yeah. All right. I remember backpacking around the world, and actually you would think that the worst places would be in like Africa or Southeast Asia.
Yeah.
But actually the worst hostel I stayed in was in the US.
All right.
Yeah. It was in Hawaii, and you shared your bed with, I don't know, several dozen cockroaches. And you went into, I remember going at night. I only stayed there one night, but I had to. There was no other choice. I remember going into the bathroom and I was like, weird, the floor's black. And then I opened the door, turned on the lights, and then the cockroaches scattered. But there were so many cockroaches. Initially, I thought the floor was black. And that's how bad it was. And when you went to bed, there was cockroaches in the bed. And you normally you'd think, open the bed and the cockroaches would run away.
Yeah.
They didn't care. They would still be hanging around. You had to pull them out. And I was so tired, I had to sleep. I just tried to not imagine what was crawling over me. Stayed there one night, and then the following day I felt something else, but it was so crazy.
It reminds me of the shittiest bar I've ever been to, which was in Bahrain. So it was an illegal bar called Old Beams. And imagine,
Perfect
toilet
name.
Scene from Train Spotting where he dives down the toilet to get the suppository, that kind of vibe.
Did you try to reenact that there?
No, I didn't, fortunately. There were a lot of stories about the place. Apparently, some guy died of a heart attack in the bar and just fell down with his head to the bar. And they didn't find out until closing time because they thought he was just drunk and sitting there. So they wake up and the guy's dead.
Oh God. Yeah. Anyway.
So Obi, give us the TLDR on Obi Nwosu. What's your story?
TLDR. I am, background is, you can hear from my accent, I'm British, English, member of the United Kingdom. But my background is Nigerian descent. So both my parents were from Nigeria. Sadly, they both passed away in the last sort of 5-6 years. But they were both from Nigeria. I was actually conceived in Nigeria, but born in the UK. So I always like to say that my mother made it to Heathrow Airport and I combat rolled down the stairs into the United Kingdom. Grew up in inner city, mid-70s, early 80s, UK. Very early on, I discovered that I was really interested in computers. And soon after that, I discovered I was really interested in neural networks. So I was building neural networks in secondary school. University, I studied computer science and cognitive science. And then I discovered my passion for entrepreneurialism. So I worked on some of the earliest sites for the BBC and News International. And then I built a massively multiplayer virtual world with 1 million users, and then another one with 30 million users. And then I went from being a CTO for 15 years to being a CEO. And I had a couple of companies. One did well, sold. One did really badly, lost a lot of money. But that's where you learn all your lessons. And then I went on to, while working on that one, I discovered the 2011 Bitcoin. and I bought a little bit, and I thought it was really interesting technology, but I didn't think it was going to succeed. It was going to be squashed. 2 years later, after I'd sold my second company, my soon-to-be co-founder came up and said, we should set up a Bitcoin exchange here. And I was like, okay, this Bitcoin stuff in 2013 is still around, and it's still around. Great tech, staying power. Let's do this. And ran the UK's longest running Bitcoin exchange. It started 3 people with a dream, and then we were 1.70% market share in the UK for 8 years. The first to do this thing called provable solvency. We did it for the longest unbroken record, listed via Blockstream on the New York Stock Exchange, one of the first regulated exchanges in Europe. But that's when I realized over that 8 years that one, regulation was eventually going to make it harder and harder and harder for people to self-custody.
Yeah.
The unintended consequence of that was
unhosted wallets and all that.
Well, the onboarding experience was just going to get more and more and more. The UX was going to be more and more and more difficult and challenging.
Yeah.
And whatever the reasons for the regulation, this unintended consequence had to be resolved. And I felt that it was important to find ways to get people to custody off exchanges. But I also found that just human nature, people were, most people in the Bitcoin space are sort of like trailblazers and so on. But most people want safety and security and they want what they can understand and so on. And so most people that we talked to from our customer base were very uncomfortable with self-custodying, and they trusted us more than they trusted themselves.
Yeah.
And from that research and from those conversations, I realized that they trusted their friends and family more than they trusted us. And the reason they came to us was normally from a recommendation from a friend or family. So that told you that the trust level was close friends and family, then strangers who advertise and show themselves to be really big and important and well-structured, i.e. companies, and then themselves was the third in terms of order. So that's where the seeds of the idea is, if there's a way to get people to at least trust, use the sort of the power of their community, that could be interesting. And
so that's how the idea for Fedimint was born.
That's how my thinking about this approach to potentially getting people off exchanges came. But I didn't come up with the idea of Fedimint. That was my co-founder, Eric Syrian.
Oh.
And he'd been working, so he was pure, cypherpunk, strong background in cryptography. He's an incredible guy, very, very, very humble as well.
Mm-hmm.
And his story, so we met in Hackers Congress in Prague, but his story a few years before that was he was working on cryptography and so on. And as a cypherpunk, as a cryptographer, he was very interested in Fedi and E-Cash. And the way I describe it, it's like catnip to cryptographers, the idea of Fedi and E-Cash. It's an incredibly simple protocol. This year, it's 40 years young. So it's been around for a long time, very mature.
40 years.
40 years.
All right.
It predates, it's the idea came out was based on a paper that came out in 1983.
Yeah,
so,
I always say that Bitcoin is not the first cryptocurrency. It's the last.
Yeah, it's the last. So, and it has a number of incredible properties with one downside.
Yeah.
So, whereas Bitcoin doesn't have that downside and has very strong properties, but in some respects not as strong as E-Cash, but the one that's most important, censorship resistance and decentralization, it's nothing can beat it. And that's, we now know, is the most important criteria. But in terms of privacy, it's good, but E-Cash is, technically, it can be cryptographically near perfect privacy. It's also a very, very simple protocol. So it's really easy to understand. You can use easy analogies and people understand it. And the E-Cash you get as a result acts the way when you first heard about Bitcoin, you expect it to act. Like, actually, it acts like cash in your pocket. You have a file per coin. So if I want to send you, so it's a bearer instrument. Each file, when you have E-Cash on your phone, it is literally on your phone. It's not on a blockchain.
Okay.
If you have 10 E-Cash notes, each one being worth 0.1 Bitcoin, then you'll have 10 files of 0.1 coin. And if I want to send you 0.1, I will literally just take one of those and just send it to you in any mean possible. It could be sent it over the internet. It could be sending it offline. It could be sending it through your screen. It could be however.
So how do I know that you don't still have the file yourself?
No, you don't know that. So that's where you still can go back to. That's why the mint is important. Mm-hmm. You go back to the mint and tell them that it's prove that you have it, and they can issue you a new mint. It's like going to the bank again.
Okay.
So, but again, conceptually, we understand these concepts of I've got some old dirty notes that have been used a lot, so I go to bank and get some fresh notes, and they burn those ones. And then the question is, so it works, but it all requires trust in this mint, so all these great properties, but all require trust in this central actor. And he'd been thinking about this, and he thought about a way of taking some of the concepts from Blockstream and Liquid and federations and say, well, why can't I take this federation concept and apply it to Chami and E-Cash? So federate the Chami and E-Cash mint. So Fedimint.
Oh, right. So that's where the name comes from.
But then you realize, okay, but you've got that, but I also have to put value in and out. And so what is the money to do that? Well, clearly, you should use the best money there is, and that's Bitcoin. So you also have a federated wallet for Bitcoin. And that effectively is a multi-sig wallet.
Okay, so Fedimint is not a Bitcoin specific, but you could use it for anything.
Fedimint is so the idea came from the passion to take Chami and E-Cash and make that better. And the way to make it better is federated, as opposed to trusting one single party, which was the idea from 40 years ago. It's not new to have a single party Chami and E-Cash. It's a 40-year-old idea. But the idea of making it federated was the new concept. And you'd think, okay, but if it's federated, but the money that you deposit in and out is not. So let's say someone deposits money in the bank and then they issue this in a federated manner. It doesn't matter because the money's still not federated. But Bitcoin is the first money that you could hold in a federated manner, i.e. multi-sig. Multiple people are simultaneously owning this. That wasn't possible before Bitcoin. You can't have, $40 owned by 4 different people. Each can have $10 each. But unless they're all holding the $40 in their hand as if they never move, go to the toilet together, go to sleep together. That's not practical. So at a distance, multiple people simultaneously, collectively owning something was only possible with Bitcoin. So, but prior to that wasn't possible. So it now made sense to federate the E-Cash mint because the money can also be federated. But then you think, okay, but sending Bitcoin around, if I do need to take money and from this wallet and send it around, Bitcoin by itself is going to be slow, it's going to be expensive. So really, to make the system practical, you also need to have federated Lightning as well. So what he really built is a system. His intention was to build a system to federate Chami and E-Cash. What he built was a system to take any process you want and make it federated. But clearly, you don't want to do federated Grand Theft Auto. It's not really important to have the overhead of federating. But you could do federated Grand Theft Auto. It just wouldn't. So what it comes down to is things to do with really important things. So money, maybe certain important data like passwords, you might want to federate that, for example, backing up with private keys across multiple as opposed to one. And also conversations, instead of having it stored with just one provider like WhatsApp or Telegram or WeChat, having all access to all your conversations. You could instead federate the running of that to multiple people. So there could be other things, but the obvious ones are your communication, your money, and certain sensitive data. You'd want it to be federated and shared.
So how does that work though? Like what does the app look like? How do I federate information?
I can show you the app, but I don't know how it will look on the screen. But so there's 2 things. So first of all, there's the service that can take any process and federate it, and it comes as standard with. I should have worn my Fedimint t-shirt because then you could see the code on my chest. But the first thing it does is it launches the federation. And the way it does that is let's say there's a 3 of us plus 1 other, and that's we recommended minimum. You can have a federation of 1, but then that's basically
what's
single.
the point?
I mean, it's useful for testing.
Okay.
If you want to, developer, you want to test an idea because it will operate the same if it's 1 or if it's 4 or if it's 50 years. Mm-hmm. So you develop it and you start working on it, and then once you're happy, you can expand. Or if you only have 1 to begin with, you can start a process. But as it gets above a certain size, you can say, okay, let's add more and create a larger federation, and a larger federation as your community expands. That could be useful. But let's say the point where you start getting redundancy, i.e. protection from bad actors, is at 4. So let's say we have four guardians. You would, we call them guardians, people who run it. They will download the Fedimint software, and they will run it, and it will ask you how many people in the federation. And one of them, it can be anybody. You can elect one to be the person who just fills in the form, basically. Anyone can do it. It doesn't really matter. They don't get any power from that. They just get the admin work of writing the name of the federation, the number of people, say it's 4, and then a description of the federation. That's pretty much it. There's a few other, do you want to just have money handled, or do you want money in chat handled, and so on? A few things. It takes 2 minutes, depending on how quickly you type. An average typer, 1 minute to fill. It's like 5 questions on a form about just telling you the information about the federation, and you click go, and it will effectively give you it'll give you a string which represents the federation, and you take that string and you copy it and you send it to the other 4 people, and they paste that same string into their Fedimint. And that information allows them to find the other servers. So they connect up to the other servers. Yeah. And you'll wait 3 or 4 seconds later, hey, presto, federation formed. So at that point, each person's software is just running a little bit like a Bitcoin node. It will just continue just to run, tick, tick, tick. You need to just keep that machine fed and watered with internet and electricity, a bit like a Bitcoin node. And they will communicate with each other. And so they have a number of programs that are running on them that are federated. So all Fedimints by default come as standard with Bitcoin, Lightning, and E-Cash apps effectively. Oh. And so all of them will have Bitcoin, Lightning, and E-Cash, and they will communicate to each other, and it becomes this one federated E-Cash, federated Bitcoin, federated Lightning, all running. So what that means now, for example, the federated Bitcoin will give you a deposit address, just like it'll act like a Bitcoin wallet. All right. And you can say, I can send money to it, and also you can, it has an API as well, effectively, an application program interface. So programs can use this service to know when the federation has received money, ask it to send money, and so on. It has to provide certain information. Yeah. So
if I have a multisig on a Fedi, like how does that work? If I want to send the Bitcoin, does 3 out of 4 people have to send it?
Yes, but the 3 out of 4 of the Fedimint servers. Yeah. So each server will recognize there's a request to send, see that you have the relevant rights to send that money. As part of the request, you have to prove that you have the rights to send the money. You have to effectively provide the information needed to prove that. And once it sees that you have the proof you have the right, you'll also pass with your request where you want to send the money to. And then it will negotiate with the others, check that at least 2 of the other 3 have also confirmed that. And then once we've all confirmed, then they will collectively also sign together a transaction to send and publish. One of them will publish. It doesn't really matter. Right. Just round robin between them. But that's all handled in the background. So it's like the simplest way to set up a multisig as well. If you want to, even if you didn't want to, if you wanted to have a federation for yourself, you might find that's easier than to set up a multisig for yourself, because it's just like you download 4 pieces of program. You can put them all on the same machine. You can put them onto different machines, and then set up with one, click, click, click. And you've got this multisig, which you could use to receive and send. And if one of those machines was destroyed, it would recover and handle all of that, for example, or lost and so on. So
yeah, I have a specific question about that. Like, how are the Bitcoin addresses then stored? Like, if someone gets access to the computer where the software is running, can they just have the private key there? Is that sort of how that works?
The computer where it's running, well, it depends on how the computer's set up, but fundamentally, if a computer is compromised, then you can have access to the keys on it. Just in the case of hardware wallets compromised, you can have access to the keys to it. So it's similar.
A multi-sig. So,
but you'd have to compromise multiple of them. And if there was 7, you have to compromise. You'd have to compromise at least 2 to be able to prevent this. Well, no, at least 3 to be able to prevent the system from being able to create new transactions. But you still couldn't take anything. You'd have to compromise 5 of the 7 to be able to take money. But you'd have to compromise 3 of the 7 to be able to prevent the others from spending the money.
And how do you find peers? Like, how do you find the other parties to Fedi with? Like, is to form the federation?
Form the federation.
Yeah, it's a rating system or something like.
The idea. This is where we collided. So he was working on this idea, and he was thinking about it technically as, okay, I can federate this Charmian Mint, and also I should federate Bitcoin as well, which is already done, multi-sig, and federate Lightning, and now it makes this cohesive idea: Bitcoin, Lightning, and Fedimint. And other people really liked this idea. He got initially the first people to sort of hear it was Blockstream, and they started sponsoring him. And I think over a year before I met him, and also they used the people who worked on Liquid, which was another form of federation, gave him input on this. So he was able to take that and build something which had similar properties, but focused on being really, really, really easy to set up and run. That was the difference of focus. So he had that, but he wasn't really thinking about the sort of the logistical aspect of, okay, how do you form the federations? It's like this is software that allows this to happen, but the actual creating a federation, who should be the people running it? That was different from him. While I was looking for, I had this insight that communities were potentially a powerful new unit for running, for working with Bitcoin, as opposed to the individual or very large strangers, centralized strangers, and nothing in between. You have this community of second parties, people that you know, friends and family. So. And so when I met him in Hackers Congress, by pure luck, because we live in different circles, he's like pure, alpha CryptoPunk, cypherpunk circles. I was more commercial, but I was in the middle of selling my last company, and I just thought, okay, I can finally go to Hackers Congress. When you're running a regulated financial institution, you'll get asked lots of questions if you decide to go to Hackers Congress, But now that I was selling it, I was like, finally, I can just go to something I wanted to go to. So I went for the first time. And chance encounter, you just meet people, started talking. I explained what I was trying to do, explained some of the ideas I had at the time. He politely explained why they were all really bad ideas, technically. But I was also just very impressed with how he could explain it, be very clear about it, but be diplomatic as well. And then I asked him what he was working on, and he started explaining, and I thought this was a very interesting idea. And then it just clicked. Well, this is the way to solve my problem, actually. But the missing piece was community. That if you find and focus on communities, whether it be a company for internal company use, that's a community, or a village, or a family, and who regularly have an Uncle Jim who's handling custody for the children, or the grandparents and so on. They're all different forms of community. So how do you find people? Well, then the answer is obvious. If it's your community, you've already found them. It's not KYC, it's KYF. Know your friend, know your family. You've spent your entire life already knowing them. And there'll be some people you really love, but you wouldn't trust them as far as you can throw them, And there'll be other, whether it's because they're untrustworthy or whether it's because they are just not really technically competent to it. And there's other people you probably think these people could be trustworthy enough. And combine that with the fact that Fedimints are incredibly simple to set up. Well, that's the target. I mean, it's a year ago when I'm talking about it, it was still quite a complex thing to set up. But the vision was it was going to be easy. And what we've been doing really hard over the last year is getting it easier and easier. So now let's just demo it to one sort of organization just yesterday. It was amazing because it used to require a skilled technician, a day to set up one. But now we just clicked a button at the beginning of the talk, and we say, fill in the form, clicked a button, and then said, we'll come back to that. And we did the presentation for like 10 minutes and it set itself up. And I go, look, to prove it works, you took an app, the Fedi app, but it could be any other app, just like the multiple Lightning apps and multiple Bitcoin apps, scan the QR code and you'd join the federation. So it's 10 minutes and one click pretty much to set up a federation now. And we think we can get it down to 2 minutes. And well, you just have to have at least one click. You have to download it and click go. Pretty much that's it.
I mean, this is so fascinating because the way I see it, this don't trust, verify attitude in Bitcoin, it over time it creates a layer of trust between Bitcoiners. Like we trust each other to a larger extent. Like if someone on Twitter DMs me and say, "Hey, you want to go to Mexico?" Like, sure. And
but this could be a random person, but you now know this.
Yeah, because the proof of work or for the person, or like the interactions you've had with them on Twitter or anything else over the years, it's sort of Bitcoiners become trustworthy because it becomes easier to like weed out the bad seeds. If someone starts shitcoining or something, like, I'm not going to trust that guy. Yeah. So ironically, don't trust, verify leads to more trust.
I think you had this sort of process of maturation of Bitcoin. Yeah. So I think it was absolutely important to have the base layer, to start with, don't trust, verify, because we were living in a world at that time, and we still are, but it's changing because of what we're doing. But we were living in a world of don't verify, just blindly trust. Yeah, that's the world we were living in. And so you needed to have a very, very clear counter to that. Yeah. So and you didn't want to have any caveating, no. You need to be a clear message. So it needs to be don't trust, verify. And that should be the base and the foundation. And that should be, but over time, now it's gaining traction and people understanding that we can now actually explain that the ideal is to trust, but also verify. Do both. And in fact, actually, I was supposed to give you those dog tags from the Bad Boating Club. Oh, yeah. And I didn't keep them because it was like, But I still forgot to play. But maybe because I just like it for myself, because it's 21 divided by infinity. That was what was stamped.
The other way around, right?
Yeah, sorry, infinity divided by 21. Sorry, you're right. I was testing you. But you still remember that. That's good. But my one was trust and also verify.
Trust and verify.
Yeah. So trust is a very, very powerful tool. It makes things more efficient and so on. So, however, and to not trust, to go through a world with not trusting anybody. No one does that. Even the most ardent person who says don't trust, verify will. The very fact of their day-to-day existence, they'll be trusting thousands of different people, whether they realize it or not. When they eat food, they have to trust that food is not being poisoned. Drink water, it hasn't been poisoned.
When you cross a bridge, you need to trust the engineer.
Yeah, so you're going to need to trust. Yeah. Otherwise, you're just going to be in a hole, not talking to anyone. But that being the case, you should also build up the habit of verifying them. And so I think that's the sort of the North Star. And where that meets is, I think, at community. Yeah,
there's another aspect to it, like the Bitcoin removing the profitability from violent behaviors. So since if most of my wealth is in my head, as in keeping a secret, owning a Bitcoin, if you kill me, you don't get anything. So you're like moving the Schelling point of violence, and that in itself, that very concept of Bitcoins being very hard to steal from people who know how to store them properly, especially if you have a multi-sig setup in different countries and all of this stuff. It's quite hard to get another person's Bitcoin if they know what they're doing, and that in a way creates more trust, because you know that the guy you're trusting doesn't have the incentive to attack you in the same way as they do in fiat. You think there's something to that?
Yeah, I think incentives are really important, and you're right. It's making it as difficult as possible to be able to take it from you is important.
Yeah,
and that's why the best possible, and that's also important to be clear. The best possible is to have something which is trust minimized.
Yeah.
Self-custody is the best possible at this point. Although, if we can get, and our objective is always to keep analyzing this, but if we can get the efforts to custody within the community, to be close to that, we work on that. So I said I had a background in provable solvency for 8 years. So really early on, I think it was about a year, within a few months of meeting, we discussed how to add proof of reserves to Fedimint as well. So we've been working on that in the background for the last year. There's many things we tend to just work on it quietly, and then when it's ready, release. But so all these things are important, and there's always new innovations and technologies in the Bitcoin space which will make that even closer and closer and closer to the experience of Lightning, and maybe even closer to the experience of self-custody.
Okay, we have some big news. We have a new lead sponsor, Amber App. They're the #1 exchange in the Southern Hemisphere. They're rated for the best customer service around, and their global launch is coming. But the reason we're partnering with Amber App is because of the people. If you haven't listened to our episode with Izzy, CEO of Amber App, you really should go check it out. You'll see why it made perfect sense to partner with Izzy and Amber App. That's all I'll say for now. You really have to check it out for yourself. They have loads of great features coming that we're excited to share with you when the time comes. But for now, just check out the episode, check out their website, amber.app. You can see for yourself why we're thrilled to bring Amber App on as our lead sponsor and partner. So go check it out. Next up, Wasabi Wallet, the privacy by default, open source, non-custodial Bitcoin wallet with CoinJoin built in. It's the easy to use, comprehensive, affordable way to make your coins private. And the best part is they've been making huge improvements to the app. They're really focusing on the user experience, adding advanced features for power users. They just keep getting better. You send your coins to your Wasabi wallet and they get combined with loads of other coins using the Wabi-Sabi protocol, so they're private on the other end. Your tracks are covered, so you can work on expanding your freedom footprint without worrying about your privacy. So check out wasabiwallet.io and download Wasabi today. I have a couple of follow-on questions here. First of all, that provable solvency thing, I think you explained that, but I sort of have a question about like how does the E-Cash actually get created, and then how does that get used outside of the Federation? Because this is sort of the point that I understood that you have the guardians that are in control of
multi-sig, Bitcoin, federated Lightning, for want of a better phrase, and obviously the federated E-Cash and any other application that you want to federate. They would be in control of running those. Yeah.
So they're in control of it, but then there are the members. I think.
Yeah.
That's the point.
The users. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
sure.
Because members could mean guardians or the users. So it's like I just say users and guardians. Yeah.
Okay, so you have the users, right? And so what's the mechanism of getting something deposited into the Federation into the hands of those users? How do they join? This is really 80 IQ question here, or 85, I don't know.
No, that's a good question. So there's a few things. You say, how do you get money into the system, and how do they join? So let me first say how you join. To join, you just need to know the details of the guardians. So you need to have the address of the Federation, effectively. You can think of it a bit like an internet URL web address, almost like. So as long as you can know that, and you get that from another, again, it depends on the Federation, how they set it up. Sometimes only the guardians can give that address to people, and they're the only ones who can allow people to join. Or the default way is anyone who's a member can pass on the details to someone else. So it can be very viral. You have connected to the Federation, and in the Federation details would be the address of the Federation, which you can display as a QR code and you give to someone else, and they can just scan. So as long as you have the address, you can join.
And a thing here, as far as choosing to join a federation, that it only makes sense to join federations where you trust the guardians, something like that.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I mean, does it make sense to join it where you don't trust the guardians? I don't know, but it does make sense to join ones where you trust. And but then you have degrees of trust, and again, you use your human intuition on the trust levels about understanding, knowing your friends, knowing your family, to determine how much you hold, because you can be a member of multiple federations. Yeah. And so just like I can visit multiple websites, and I can be a member of multiple federations, and it might be on one, I store very small amounts, but it might have lots of guardians and lots of other users, because I'm going to come back to your other part of your question soon because it's related. And so there's benefits for me to use that, but I might only hold the amount of money I would keep for if I'm going out and I put in my wallet. So worst case, if I get pickpocketed, I lose, an evening's worth of money. Whereas ones where it could be set up by my friends and family and Uncle Jim's and Auntie Janet's or whatever the female equivalent of Uncle Jim is, if that one I might store a lot more value because I've known them for my entire life and they've been consistent, etc. And I might store more there. And then there might be there might be a company and all of its employees already. The company is relying on and trusting the senior executives in the company to look after the money of the company already. By definition, the CFO and the CEO and so on could run off with the money. So you might as well consider putting in a federation for if you have it maintaining a Bitcoin treasury. And if people have expenses in Bitcoin, well, in which case you can have those run through a federation and Fedimint, etc. But now you have a multi-sig set up for your company as another form of community. So, and then it's a different amount of money will be stored there. So you would store the amount based on who the people are.
So how does it scale though? Like, is there some form of vouching system or rating system where people in one federation can
What's
recommend?
The rating system for your family?
No, but you have one family A here, family B there.
You have a rating. No, but in terms of, so the question is, within your community, you already know. So it's also the size of your community. Outside of your community, it doesn't scale. So that's a feature, not a bug, because it means that you don't have this. We don't expect to see one monolithic, roll up or sidechain or so on, where everybody in the world uses, and with 5 people or 10 people or 100 people running it. Instead, you're going to have just like how many communities are there, how many families, how many towns, villages, and how many companies are there worldwide? Millions. And you want to see millions of these Fedimints, and to your previous question, the E-Cash is only usable within that community. However, if I want to send it from one community to another, that's where Bitcoin and Lightning comes in. I have to convert that E-Cash back into Bitcoin or Lightning Bitcoin and send it over the Lightning network to someone else, either who's on main chain or on the Lightning network directly, because they're self-custodial or they're running their own Lightning node or so on. Or they could be someone in another federation, and it will go from E-Cash, my federation, which is acceptable with anybody within my community or within my company or within my family, to Lightning. And then I go over the Lightning network to another federation, which then gets converted by the federations in there to E-Cash and on a balance. But from our experience, from the UX will be, I open up my app, and there was I'm trying to remember, there was a Fedimint wallet. I'm trying to remember the name, but there's a new one called Webimint, and then there's Fedi is the one we're working on. So there are different implementations of Fedimint, or Fedimint protocol. So I could take my wallet, see yours, you give me a QR code that can look like a Lightning, it will look like a Lightning invoice. I scan it in the same way I would do with any other Lightning wallet, and my balance will go down and yours will go up. You're on a different federation, or It could be a Breeze wallet or any other wallet. You show me the QR code and the Lightning address, and I will pay it. And it doesn't, the details of whether it's converting or so on is all happening automatically because you've got these federations running this code 24/7 in the background. And they could be sleeping while it's doing it. As long as they make sure that machine is protected and is fed and watered with electricity and internet, it all just works. So that's how it scales. The Lightning Network makes it scale.
Okay, so Bitcoin scales Fedi and not the other way around.
Bitcoin scales Fedi and Fedi scales Bitcoin.
Okay.
I talked last year in the Afro Bitcoin conference. I said Africa wins with Bitcoin's help and Bitcoin wins with Africa's help. Yeah. But this is actually another one of these things. Lightning, without Lightning, you're going to have tens of thousands of these islands that But Lightning, on the other hand, there was just a talk the other day in Bitcoin Amsterdam with a number of people on scaling Lightning, and their calculations was you can get to maybe 10 million, maybe 20 million people using the Lightning Network directly. Yeah. But if a million of those were federations, each one's with somewhere between 5 people to 50,000 people on them. Now that scales to billions of people.
So what's the limit of a federated? Like, how big can it be? Does it have to do with Dunbar's number?
No, it doesn't have to do. I mean, technically, yes and no. Actually, on a technical level, you could get to hundreds of thousands potentially. But on a practical level, because of the fact that it's going to be people that you trust and so on, we expect that number to be lower because it's the trust limit is going to actually prevent it getting above a certain size. But you could have somewhere people will be very large, but people will store small amounts on, like a spending wallet, and your anonymity set or your privacy set, I think is a better way of putting it, is limited to the number of people in the federation. But basically, you could be a family. It could be a size of one. You could just set up, you might want to do this as a simple way or an alternative way of setting up a multi-sig for yourself. And you have 4 nodes. In fact, someone just the other day showed a Fedimint running on a mobile phone. So you can get 4 mobile phones plugged into power in 4 different places, like in your office, in a cupboard somewhere, and in your house and a friend's place, and they're mobile phones, so they're waterproof and so on. And you can have them solar powered or whatever. You get 4 phones. In theory, I mean, we're not there yet, but just someone literally was just quite excited about that. But you could have 4 umbrellas or whatever, and they form a federation just for you, and you could be the only user of it. But then the benefit of that is that if one failed, you'll immediately know, and you can have software which will immediately, you could create. People are thinking about so many different ideas, but this is for other people to build because it's an extensible platform. You can have this federated sort of emergency exit button where if the number of guardians went down below a certain level, it'll take your balance and send it immediately off to another federation or another address or something.
Okay, so it's not that you can recover a lost guardian. That's not possible, or it is possible?
If they're lost, you can't recover them. If they're damaged or their machines failed or so on, then that can be recovered. You just restart the machine and it will automatically catch up. And again, all of this. So when you see a website that's very popular being used by multiple people, there's a machine called a web server. A web server where the actual code for the site is. And when someone goes to the website, they connect up to that web server, that machine, and it will take the code for a given page and send it back to the person, and the person will display that on their web browser. But the reality is that beyond the most trivial websites, there won't just be one machine. There will be multiple machines that all have the same software running on them. And so when you ask for that website, it will basically, there'll be another service which will say, okay, this time machine A responds, then machine B, then machine D. And then if someone tries to modify any data on machine A, they communicate to each other to make sure that they all have the same data. Now, typically the way that would work is it can be a little bit complex to set up. You have all these different types of machines involved. You have database servers, and you have application servers and web servers and load balancers, and there's all this other stuff. All that's replaced with a federation, and it handles that. And you have software to handle if one fails, and I'll recover. That's all handled by the federation. You just set it up 5 minutes, and then if one machine fails and you restart it, it will catch up and recover. It will synchronize information. That's why, although this was made to resolve making Chami and E-Cash mints decentralized, it has way more applicability. If there's anything that you think benefits from redundancy and reliability, then you should run it in a federation. You don't need that to run noughts and crosses, but tic-tac-toe, as some people might call it. But it's useful when you're dealing, if you think about it, definitely when it deals with money, you want redundancy. You don't want to lose one machine and everything stops. Definitely with chat and certain sensitive data, your passwords, you might want it to be on multiple machines, not one machine failing. Does that make sense?
And last redundancy question on that: can you transfer the identity of a guardian? Because in my thinking, when I talked about that, if something fails, right, the question I have is, what if you have multiple failures, and then you say you can transfer the balance out, but you would lose your federation in that respect.
Yeah,
right?
Yes, you can. And Casa does a good job of this as well. For example, you have, with the guardians, when you set up a multi-sig, so multiple people signing, having collective ownership of certain Bitcoin or control of certain Bitcoin, that set is fixed. There are protocols to allow you to add more to that set. There's something called Frost that's recently come out that allows you to take a multi-sig, and then you can add more people to it. But you can't remove people from it, but you can add people to that set. You can, so you have to be aware that you can make them you no longer talk to them, but their keys are still active. So you have to track that. But, and already someone has made something called Fedimint, which was using Fedimint and extended it to support extensible sets. However, even without that, what you can do is if someone loses their keys or becomes a bad actor, or they decide I don't want to be a guardian anymore, and a different person comes in, you form a new federation with the new set of people, and then you would transition everybody's balances over the Lightning Network to the others. But
like traditional multi-sig, essentially.
But like traditional multi-sig. But what Casa did very well, and others do, is made that process. When you go in, what you see is I've got these people who are the signers for the multi-sig, and I now want to delete this person, add this person. You make the change you want, you click confirmed, and then there's an hourglass and it goes done. But what's actually done is it's formed a new multi-sig, transferred balances. But from your point of view, it's just felt like I've just made a change. And that's where, from a UX point of view, all of that should be hidden from the user. And so we should have it where we transfer your Bitcoin across, your E-Cash and your if you're using chats, your chat conversations, everything, it should all just go across. But from your point of view, you don't see that. You just see this thing is up, this thing is upgrading. Here's a new version of the federation. Are you happy with those guardians? If not, you've got, a week or a month to just transfer it out to somewhere else. Otherwise, just click OK, and then you just wait hourglass and done. You've upgraded. So that's our North Star aim. And we're not there yet, but we've got an incredible team who are working around the clock to make the experience magical, as I'd like to put it.
And when can we expect the Fedi chewing gum, like perfect branding with Frosty Mints and Fedimints and like?
Oh, well, then the answer for that is there's never going to be perfect. So the vision that we have in our mind of the system is never going to be perfect, because the Bitcoin ecosystem is constantly coming up with new ideas. And so, Frost was one. If there was an opcode update to support certain things like covenants, then, we could add all of that to Fedimint.
Yeah.
And there's things like ideas like Arc, which could be implemented to a federated Arc. Anything that works well single server works better federated, because like federations are better than no federations. Simple setup is better than complex setup.
Yeah.
Redundancy is better than no redundancy, So that's what you get with running something in a federated manner. So if it's useful to run in a non-federated manner, then anything that we deal with in the Bitcoin space anyway. I don't think because there's an overhead to running a federation versus running it on a single machine. So if you're running a game of Pac-Man, you probably don't need it to be federated. If the machine fails, you just start the game again. It's like, it's not the end of the world. So, but for money, for communication, and for certain sensitive data, it makes sense. And even some of the latest goings on in the Bitcoin space, some of the new ideas that have come out, again, we're keeping a close eye on, because if they bear fruit, anything in the space, we will look to implement it to make the system better. And Fedimint will benefit from these new ideas, and these new ideas will benefit from Fedimint, because Fedimint is a mechanism to federate any idea. And you'll hear when people are looking at these new ideas, how to make them better, they will suggest, okay, well, for example, ARC. What happens if the ARC service provider goes offline? Well, the solution is we just federate it. But it's like a database is a very useful thing to have. And it's like, well, what I'm going to do with all this data, the solution is a database. Now, to begin with, show my age, but back in the 90s, every time you'll say, well, we need a database or a web server, you'll literally roll your own database or you'll roll your own web server.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you would just use one of the standard established web servers, and you'd use one of the established databases. You would focus on your business logic, and you won't write your own database.
You could even take that one step further and click a button to launch a cloud server that has all the features on
exactly.
it for you.
But the point is that these are things that are widely useful for multiple things. So it makes sense for someone just to focus on doing that really, really well. So then you can focus on ARC, or you can focus on whatever, BitVM, or you can focus on whatever system you want to do, coin pools and stuff like that.
Yeah, I was thinking about
all these different things, but the actual bit of federating it, handling redundancy, handling failure, all that sort of stuff, you just thought, why not just make it a module on a Fedimint? And then I just have to focus on the business logic, and all of the effort from this incredible team to make it federated and redundant and fully recovering, you get for free.
You said coin pools. I was thinking about coin joins before. Like, is there a bridge between the two technologies where you do a federated coin join where you trust the other people to not have flagged coins?
Anything could be done. So you could do that, but within a federation, E-Cash is actually cryptographically indistinguishable one E-Cash from another. So you already you sort of get a level of privacy for free anyway.
All right.
Yeah, I think we haven't actually dug into the E-Cash concept quite as much in this conversation. That is kind of the killer feature, and originally the
original idea was E-Cash, and it is a incredibly important and killer feature. But what we realize more and more is that there are multiple killer features, and it's important to understand that you get best-in-class E-Cash because it's federated, so you remove the single point of trust. So that's incredible, and that was the thing that was new. But you also get a very simple to set up multi-sig system. You also get redundant lightning as well. So you can the benefit of having that is that you can have multiple people providing you lightning provision, for example, as opposed to one LSP. But you don't need to lock up different Bitcoin with each one. So that means it's costless for me to have free lightning connections going out from my federation, which is available for everybody in that community, as opposed to one. So let's say one of your LSPs works 99 times out of 100, payments wise. Well, if you have one, that means one in 100 of your transactions fails. If you have free, it's 1 in 100 times by 1 in 100 times by 1 in 100. That's like, so you're now talking about 1 in a million, or 1 in a million, I think will fail. because you have redundancy. Also, the cost of using Bitcoin and Lightning Network, like channel rebalancing, now is shared across, instead of one person, it's shared across, a community, or a family of 10, 20, or a company of 50 to 100, or a community of 10,000, so on, making it much more affordable for some of the people who need it the most. So it actually has multiple benefits if you federate Bitcoin usage, if you federate Lightning usage and share that. So, and then the general concept that is built on, of the idea of federations and making them really easy, more and more. And once you start hearing it, you'll realize that lots of things that are being looked at in the space, they will talk about, to make them more redundant, to make them easier, we just have the federation. But it's like, well, okay, we should build our own database. It's like, well, do you want to do that? Or do you just want to we focus on making federations really, really easy and powerful, and also giving you the primitives that you're all going to want. You're all going to want Bitcoin. You're all going to want Lightning. You're all likely going to want E-Cash, because the more you use it, you realize it's a really, really powerful tool. And then you'll add your own business logic for the specific thing that you want to do. So I just want to make sure people understand the bigger picture. This is a really powerful, E-Cash is incredibly powerful, but the whole thing together, the combination of them leads to something even more powerful.
The show is also sponsored by Orange Pill app, the Bitcoin-only social network where you can stack friends who stack sats. You can connect with your favorite Bitcoiners on the app, make local connections, and even connect with Bitcoiners around the world. You can see what's going on in your area and organize and attend local events. I've been to multiple events organized on Orange Pill app, and they brought Bitcoiners together from all over. And now, with group chat, it's easier than ever to stay in touch with all your Bitcoin friends. The best part is, it's high signal. There's no spam on Orange Pill app because everyone pays to be there. So download Orange Pill app on Apple or Android and start building your local network of Bitcoiners. Next up, the Bitcoin Way. Their mission is to onboard, educate, and remove barriers to taking self-custody of your Bitcoin. They cover everything from cold wallets to nodes, no KYC Bitcoin purchases, inheritance planning, payments, and more. Whether you're new to Bitcoin or you're an experienced Bitcoiner looking to expand your freedom footprint, or you know someone who this sounds perfect for, the Bitcoin Way has something for you. They have a skilled team, well-versed in the Bitcoin space, and their goal is to make all the complexities of Bitcoin as straightforward as possible for everyone. And the best part is you can get started with a free 30-minute call with their team. Go to thebitcoinway.com/contact for more info. Our newest sponsor is Geyser. They are the portal to the creator economy on Bitcoin. On Geyser, creators can monetize their work through their communities in a social and engaging way, and supporters can send sats to their favorite projects. Geyser has also recently integrated with Zaps and Podcasting 2.0, so every Zap sent to a Geyser address shows up on the Geyser page. We have a Geyser fund ourselves. It's the best way to support our show directly with Bitcoin. So whether you're a creator or a supporter, check out Geyser at geyser.fund today.
So would you call Fedimint a layer 3 technology or a layer 0 technology?
I used to say different things, but I don't think now a layer 10. I think, what would you call a database? What would you call a load balancer or a web server?
Yeah.
It's
good question.
It's a tool which they all it's almost like Jerry Maguire. They complete each other.
Yeah.
You want Lightning. It's a complementary tool. So they all solve different problems. First of all, the base layer is Bitcoin.
Well, I'd say Bitcoin is layer 1, but the people in Bitcoin are layer 0.
Yeah,
because
then
without
if you want
them,
to say
there's no layer 1.
If we go with that terminology, Bitcoin is, the people are layer 0. That's the human community layer.
Yeah.
The Bitcoin is layer 1. Lightning, you might say, is layer 2.
Yeah.
Then I would say federations are things that can complement all of those. It's almost like, I would say it's like the shield. It's like the armament for all of it. So that it takes the layer 0, which are individual people right now. It allows them to organize us in communities, which they naturally do, and allows them to do that more efficiently. It takes layer 1 of Bitcoin and makes it easy to do that in a federated manner. It takes layer 2 of Lightning, and again, it makes it easy to do that in a shared manner as well. So it augments each one of those layers.
So it's layers 0.1, 1.1, and 2.1 all at the same time.
I would say it's a multiplier versus an addition. So
Okay.
it's like Tony Stark is great. The Iron Man suit, it augments him, but the Iron Man suit, except for if you ignore the later movies where it was self-running and so on. Ignore all of that. But the general idea is that, or you can think Captain America and his shield. Captain America is very powerful by himself, but the shield augments him, multiplies what he can do. And that's what I would say a Fedimint is. It allows you to do what you currently do, but in a way where it's federated. You have redundancy.
Wait a minute. It's like I see Captain America will be Bitcoin, and Iron Man would be the Lightning Network, and of course Fedi is the Avengers.
I'm into my comic books as well. But I'm not sure you're just trying to get the Avengers into the conversation because the analogy doesn't. I'm not sure the analogy fits there, but maybe
Smash. I'm the Hulk.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Iron Man and the Hulk and Captain America are all layer 0. They're all people.
Yeah,
and
Craig Wright is Dr. Doom, by the way. Yeah.
I'm not going to comment on. And they all individually can use. I would say actually, if you're really going to take this example, we're going to torture this analogy, but the individual, like the shields and the gamma rays and the Iron Man suit are actually probably closer to the idea of a really good individual wallet because they're designed. So, for example, I don't want to name one because I'll be not naming others, but there are lots of really good wallets out there that can take what you do and give you superpowers. Bitcoin wallets and Lightning wallets. But then, to your analogy, the Avengers, sometimes people want to get together and work together as a group and coordinate together as a group, and that allows them to be even stronger. So, and that's what Fedimint allows you to do. It takes your individuals and it allows you to coordinate and work as a group. A better example would be Mighty Morphing Power Rangers.
All right.
There you go. Because how they form, individually they're great, and they can. But then when they combine together to make one of these sort of Megazord type things, a Fedimint allows you to do that. There you go.
So Fedi is really Nick Fury, the guy with the eye patch.
Fedi or Fed? Oh,
Fedimint, who puts the team together. Or maybe you're Nick Fury, like you're the guy who puts the team together.
I don't. Well, if I grew a beard, then and you poked out one of my eyes, maybe.
You could just use a patch without.
I do like his color sense of clothing because I always just wear black, and Nick Fury I've pretty much only seen him wearing black. So all right, we have that in common, and plus the great hairstyle as well. But
you curse less than Samuel L. Jackson.
On interview, yes, yeah. No, generally I do, yeah. But yeah. Which is interesting because that brings you on, because you mentioned something, the separation between Fedi and Fedimint. So Fedimint, we've been talking about this whole thing, is the protocol. And Fedi is a company that was set up to increase adoption of a Fedimint originally, but our objectives and ambitions expanded. And our focus is on driving adoption of Bitcoin, of Lightning, of Fedimint, and all freedom technologies like that. To communities around the world. So we're focused on taking this community-focused approach of growth and really, really driving hard on that. And so obviously Bitcoin's part of that, Lightning's part of that, and clearly we think Fedimint is part of that as well. But there will be other technologies out there as well. When we see them, we're looking at Nostr, we're looking at lots of different things. We think that they can support. And what we do is two things. There's two halves, the human and the tech. So the tech, you understand, we work with these technologies and we analyze them and work with them. And then we build a software. We call it, the software is also called Fedi, which is like a super app for communities, which takes this all together, provides you this really simple experience where you can manage all this stuff in one place. So it's your conversations and chats, your money, and data all available from one app. So it's like a super app. And behind the scenes, it's using all of this technology, Lightning, Bitcoin, Fedimint, potentially things like Nosto and so on. And it's just seamless. So that's one. But the other side, the human side, is really important. In fact, over time, the majority of the team will be focused on this, which is effectively finding and locating and then hiring people on the ground around the world, in parts of the world where they need Bitcoin, Lightning, and other freedom technologies the most. And then providing almost like, Apple stores, and you have the Genius Bar, but it's like a decentralized Genius Bar to go with the app, so that from the app, and then also there'll be remote service as well, but it's on the ground and remote combined together, so that if you have an issue or if you have a question, you want to set this up for your community, we're there to help you set it up. But beyond that, we're there to help you understand and set up Bitcoin, Lightning, but it's all available starting from the app all the way through to someone on the ground if needed. And then any questions you may have, whether it be all the questions that you think that someone when they're starting has, we're there to answer it, but in your language, understanding your local context, potentially meeting you in person. That's a really, really powerful thing. And that's going to not just drive it, because our system is effectively this window onto the freedom technology ecosystem. The federation itself takes something else and federates it, makes it more redundant and so on. But it isn't the thing itself. We aren't Bitcoin, we aren't Lightning, we aren't Nosto, whatever it may be. So by rolling one of these out into a community alongside this sort of human support network, we actually call it the Fedi order, actually, or the Fedi order. And they're called Fedi Knights, as you can imagine. By having this, we effectively locate, educate, inculcate effectively people on all these freedom technologies. And if there are aligned services, a lot of time people will say, I've got Bitcoin, I've received it. Now what do I do with it? Well, you can buy stuff. Maybe you can buy with Bitrefill from within the app. Click, you're off to Bitrefill, but it's seamlessly integrated so that when you click and buy, the experience is very, very simple. Or it might be you can use Bolts, or you want to donate to charity, Giza, or whatever. So every rollout of Fedimint is actually this education around all these other things where people they're using them, but they're not, but we are effectively the outsourced business development arm for all the rest of the Bitcoin ecosystem as well.
So what countries are you working on?
We're a global first business. So all our employees are all over the world, we have people in every continent already. But we go where initially we're focused on a few markets and going really, really deep that are some of the most complex markets. We want to start with the most complex markets because one, there's less people operating there. There's lots of people in less complex markets. And two, what we're finding is we have to sort of every day we have it handed to ourselves and we have to, all of our understandings of how to build an app are sort of challenged. And we have to go back to the drawing board, re-architect so many different things, which is amazing because that means you're building something where that people really, really need, and because of the feedback they're getting, and you're getting this uncommon knowledge, of what you thought was required and what's actually required are very, very different things. So the end app is going to look and be different from everything else you've seen because it's starting from this human-centered approach to design. It's like we started off with something. This is what we thought. You give it to users and then in terms of locations, we have a few locations in Africa, a few locations in Latin America. We're starting to look for locations there will be locations in all over the world, but we started these because these are some of the most complex markets. We've run these trials, and then this torrent of feedback came back, and this didn't work, this didn't work, this didn't work, this didn't work. But there's something there. But you need to re-architect or rethink so many different things. So we went back, re-architected, and now, okay, it works a lot better, and there's still something there, and we're getting more excited about this, but you still need to do these changes. And so we're in that iteration point. There's a lot of excitement, but we really want to build something that is starting from a point of listening to people who need it really, really badly, whether they realize it or not, and say, well, what do we need to do to make it work in your context? So we're now, I would say, we're about 70% away through that process to the point where we can have a version that we can say, okay, this is an MVP for solving. There was an MVP that we showed to people that we can use, but now this is the MVP that's been human-centered. It's been re-architected for actual use on the ground in very, very tough environments. And the idea is, if it works in those environments, then it works everywhere.
Yeah.
You know, if you start it, so that's why it will just be way easier and better in the easy environments. But so it's always good to sort of try to work on the hardest first, and so that's what we're doing.
All right.
No, I'm only going to jump in here because I'm conscious of the time. We've already kind of overshot our target a little bit here, so I don't want to keep you too much longer.
I have one more question,
and that's what I was going to say. I've monopolized the conversation this time from our side. So back to Knut.
What was the name of the MMO that you mentioned at the beginning of the interview that you were working on?
Oh, a long time ago. There were two. So just out of university, I worked for News International. Actually, I started while I was in university, and they owned News International is this huge company that owns the Times, the Sun, lots of different things, and they had a internet service provider. This is very early days. This is in the 90s. Called Delphi Internet, and they were competing with AOL and CompuServe and so on and so forth, way back, if you remember these names. And I was in customer service, and then I noticed that they had a programming language in the customer service system, and it would normally take 30 minutes to deal with one customer because of all the manual screens you had to go through. I automated that, so the target was to be able to do 10 customers a day, and all of a sudden I was doing 20 customers coming in late, playing basketball, and I was beating all the targets. And they asked me why, and I explained I'd automated the system. If you give me a team, and the team was from my university, we could automate it further. And within a month, basically, we only had to work an hour a day to do all of our targets. So they got some new students in to do that, and go, well, what do you want to do instead? He goes, well, there's this internet thing that's starting to become very popular. Can we, and you're in news, let's become digital journalists. You didn't call them bloggers then, it was just digital. This was before the name of bloggers. So we started doing that, but I wasn't really interested in digital journalism. I was still interested in code. And I was interested in games like SimCity at the time, which is a single player game. And I thought, wouldn't it be great if I could play against other people, like real time? And and also like SimCity, but a little bit more interesting. So you couldn't just build houses and so on, but you could also like firebomb other people's houses or do smear campaigns in them in the local press and stuff like that. And so we made this sort of like dark version of SimCity, which was multiplayer, and we called it Netropolis. And built the first version, and I was like literally, I built it myself. Another member from our university, I built the back end sort of logic, the server for it, and he built the front end interface. And it was launched on our site. Not much marketing, but it built a sort of like a cult following. At one point, it had, I don't know, still people are playing it today, I think. I don't know. Unfortunately, I was like early 20s and I was not commercially focused. I don't have any rights to the game, but it had over 1 million users and people were playing it for the last 20 years. After that, so that was the MMO. Later on in my career, I worked as CTO for various sort of multinational companies, online auctions, one of the eventually sold for $2 billion to Naspers, was competing with eBay and so on at the time. And then I went on to work for a company that made a character they were called Weemies, like these little characters on Microsoft avatar things prior to NFTs, but basically they're like the similar sort of idea. And, but without a token, obviously this was like 15 years ago. no, not 20 years, no, 17, 18 years ago, maybe. But these characters, they had originally been popular on Facebook and Microsoft, and we had about 3 or 4 million Weemies. But then we decided, let's make a home for the Weemies. So we built this massive multiplayer virtual world called WeWorld. And then you needed this sort of, and it was aimed at sort of teenagers, mainly female audience, mainly American. So if you're an American teenager around that time, you would know it, or a young teenager. The competition with people like Habbo Hotel, Club Penguin was for a bit younger than us. Second Life was for a lot older, 18 plus, and we were sort of in this sort of teenage middle point. And yeah, we grew from these 3 million, we were bootstrapping these 3 million sort of individual users. They now had a place to go and they could travel around, and there were rooms and you could create your own room and decorate it. And we did partnerships with special branded stuff with Nike and then Justin Bieber, when he was early in his career, you could have a Justin Bieber sort of Weemie in your room to say that your boyfriend was Justin Bieber, and it grew. We ended up with about 30 million active users.
Oh,
so that's a lot. That was first phase for me was AI. I was studying it in university, and I was really a big fan for neural networks, but I didn't progress with that because I just thought the processing power requirements were just way above what was needed at that time. So you can only do very simple things. Now we've got to a point where we've reached this inflection point where processing power is powerful enough. The actual code is not really that much different from 20 years ago. It's the processing power is caught up, and all of a sudden you have this emergent behavior. Then the next phase was .com, and I worked for various .com startups in auctions and online travel and so on. That all, had teams of hundreds of people working for me across the world. Then it was back to massively multiplayer online games, with games up to 30 million users. And then I became my own boss, and I had first company, which was sold, and it's an interesting connection to superheroes in that one, but I won't bore you. That's another story. And the second company...
Forget about it.
No, that's not it. And the second company was, I tried to get into physical hardware. Big mistake, because it's like, many trips to Shenzhen in China and realizing that I should stick to my game, which is like software. And then the third one was Bitcoin exchange. And that's where I learned, 8 years, 2013 to 2021, learned a ton, made a lot of connections, tried to stick to as much as possible to the right path. And that all fed together to help me with Fedi. The knowledge from all of those different backgrounds have just come together in one place. And I really feel grateful that all of that knowledge I can now apply to something which is helping communities around the world to be connected with freedom technologies, so we can basically level up humanity.
Excellent. Obi, good luck with everything, and thanks so much for coming on to the show.
Good to see you. Thank you very much. We did it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks a lot, Obi. Yeah.
Have a good one, mate.
Yes. Likewise. All right.
It's like the army. It's like the army. What is it? Like the Predator. The Predator.
Yeah,
it's like we can do it. I mean, our muscles are exactly like the guys from Predator. It's like the same size, give or take a few millimeters.
Yeah, exactly. So, that's the soft stuff. We're done now.
Have you seen this one? White man, black man, Batman.